Let me ask you something. What do you need today to dominate the world? Money. And what do you need to make that money? A network. And how do you build a network for transporting physical goods? Roads, ports, and easy access across borders. Combine all of that and you get a full-fledged plan of minting a fortune and dominating the world. And if you haven't guessed it already, we are talking about the Belt and Road Initiative, the dream project of China. It is a combination of many big projects like infrastructure, energy, trade, and more. This is indeed the 21st century Silk Road. This would include many ports, countries, and intercontinental connectivity. In addition to that, it would also include maritime shipping lanes, which would establish China's connection with Latin America, Africa, Europe, and the rest of Asia. The entire plan is based on the core spirit of the ancient Silk Route, which was built by the Han Dynasty, connecting China to the Mediterranean. The old Silk Road trade played a significant role in the development of the civilization of China, Korea, Japan, the Indian subcontinent, Iran, Europe, the Horn of Africa, and Arabia, opening long-distance political and economic relations between those civilizations. Even though silk was the major item exported from China for trade, many other goods and ideas, including religions, especially Buddhism, philosophies, scientific discoveries, and technologies like paper and gunpowder were exchanged. Thus, the Silk Road was a route not only for economic but also cultural trade among the civilizations that used it. Even diseases, most notably plague, spread through the Silk Road. In the present day, trade takes place on the Silk Road on land and on the maritime branch. There are several projects under the name of the New Silk Road to expand the transport infrastructure in the area of the historic trade routes. The best known is the Belt and Road Initiative. There is a lot that needs to be uncovered in this topic and we are going to tell you all about it. But before we go ahead, please make sure to scroll down and like the video. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel with the notification bell on so that you can stay updated. The Belt and Road Initiative was launched in 2013 and is the most ambitious, extensive and expensive projects in the world, with $4 trillion already being invested. Think about it this way, only 16 countries in the world have a GDP above $1 trillion. In October 2013, Xi Jinping was giving a speech in Kazakhstan where he floated the idea of the Silk Road and how Central Asian countries could benefit from it. This is how the idea came into existence, where the belt refers to the land routes to this network of multiple economic pathways. And the road actually refers to the maritime network to the shipping lanes running from China throughout Southeast Asia, Africa, and all the way to Europe. The belt is made up of 6 corridors to get things in and out of China. The part of BRI which runs through Pakistan, called the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is situated at a place where the land routes meet the sea routes. This corridor is strategically important to China to counter India. It also provides China with a strategic outlet to the Arabian Sea through the Gwadar port, which is close to the Strait of Hormuz, from where China imports almost half of its oil. It also gives an alternative to the Malacca Strait, a narrow stretch of water that connects the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea. Pakistan is not a popular choice of investment, and China is completely exploiting this by investing around $62 billion, which is 1/4 of Pakistan's total GDP, in building highways, power stations, and other infrastructure. China has 4 main reasons for establishing the Belt and Road Initiative. First, this will help China in developing its western region, ensuring safe navigation over sea and improving strategic and economic relations with neighboring and far west countries. Second, this will help China secure access to energy and mineral resources. Third, this will allow China to overcome the Malacca dilemma through access to maritime facilities in the Indian Ocean, granting it an important strategic advantage. And the last one being that the BRI will strengthen China's presence in the Eurasian region and put it in a commanding position over Asia's heartland. But what does China really hope to achieve? Through this initiative, China wants to achieve 3 main goals. First, China has both geopolitical and economic motivation behind this initiative. It plans to acquire strategic points so that it can start its world dominance by targeting and lending debt to developing nations. Second, The country wants to promote a vision of a more assertive China, as the slowing growth and rocky trade relations with the United States pressured the country's leadership to open markets for its goods. And last one, being that experts see the BRI as one of the main planks of bolder Chinese statecraft under Xi, alongside the Made in China 2025 economic development strategy. In the fall of 2017, BRI was incorporated into the Chinese Communist Party's constitution. Following that development, a burst of activities began, with an additional 61 countries joining BRI in 2018 alone. In all, 140 countries have joined BRI till now. Now here comes the funny part. The BRI's principles said it would not interfere in the internal affairs of the country, wouldn't strive for dominant ambitions, or try to get any influence. However, in practice, China has been notoriously funding the developing countries of Asia, especially the South Asian countries, giving them loans of values more than they can return, also adding dubious clauses in bilateral agreements that directly contradict the kind nature of the BRI and reinforce the proactive debt trap diplomacy in other parts of the world. The countries include Sri Lanka, Kyrgyzstan, the Maldives, Mongolia, Pakistan, Montenegro and Tajikistan. Sri Lanka is a prime example of China having taken advantage of internal financial mismanagement and debt. Sri Lanka intended to develop the Hambantota port. The only country that showed a willingness to fund the project was China, which extended loans at a considerably high interest rate. In 2016, unable to pay the loans, Sri Lanka was left with no choice but to lease it to China for a period of 99 years. China's engagement with the Maldives could result in a similar situation where $1.4 billion, amounting to 78% of the country's external debt, is owed to China. In addition to that, the Gwadar port in Pakistan has been leased to China for over 40 years. Laos had to lease out its entire national electricity grid to a Chinese company. The Indian security establishment is deeply suspicious of China's Silk Road initiatives. Delhi Strategic Community has long objected to China's road construction on land and port building in the Indian Ocean as strategic encirclement. The problem is compounding with the presence of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. It is the presence of CPEC that actually makes the strategic encirclement theory legitimate. However, optimists feel India needs to take a fresh look. Ignoring the project will lead to India losing out on many unfolding geo-economic options. Coincidentally, the Doklam border standoff happened after India's refusal to join the grand launch of the BRI in 2017. In March 2019, Italy was the first member of the G7 nations to join this Chinese initiative. In April 2019, China engaged in an array of partnerships called the Build the Belt and Road, Shared Development and Prosperity with 18 Arab countries. Japan, India and Australia joined forces to create an alternative to the Belt and Road, creating the Blue Dot Network. During the G7 summit in June 2021, Build Back Better World Partnership was announced. The new initiative promises infrastructure investment to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars in low and middle income countries in the coming years and is widely regarded as the G7's answer to the Belt and Road Initiative. Though BRI looks like an amazing plan for China to shift towards world dominance, experts claim that this project isn't sustainable. China has given loans to countries which cannot repay or where the government is unstable or it lacks the security situation. Most of these countries are unreliable and projects in these countries are running into some or the other trouble. The CPEC work has been halted thanks to irregularities, scams and terror attacks. In Bangladesh, the Padma Railway project, which is funded by China, is facing a funding crunch. In Nigeria, there is turmoil over the prospect of losing sovereignty to China and lawmakers are demanding a probe into Beijing's lending practices. In Afghanistan, before the Taliban era, the national debt had been mounting and Kabul refused any further Chinese loans. China has also been facing the European roadblock as countries like Lithuania, Czech Republic, Slovenia, Romania and Croatia either want to terminate the BRI project or have started blocking Chinese investments. These countries are technically still part of the BRI, but still, most of them are cautious. China's plans are backfiring as their banks are cracking under the debt. Its two largest policy banks have been forced to dramatically scale down overseas lending from $75 billion in 2016 to just $4 billion in 2019. 586 Chinese banks and financing firms have been classified as highly risky. That is more than 13% of China's banking sector. Interestingly, most of these banks are related to the BRI. The problems these banks are facing are endless as they're struggling with repayment schedules, loan restructuring, or with economic distress in BRI countries, added with the reputational damage to China because of the virus. With the economy suffering a huge blow in these countries, the repayment of loans is next to impossible, and this might lead to more economic problems for China. I really hope that this video was able to help you understand the initiative and how China plans to use this to dominate the world. Please make sure to like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel with the notification bell on so that you can stay updated on our later videos.